Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from the 2021 Tata Steel Masters. On the white end, Magnus Carlsen, playing against Alireza Firouzja. Alright, we have Queen's Gambit declines. Bishop on g5, immediately questioned. The pin is maintained. Black's happy though. Got the flight square. Pin's now broken. And now on this move 7, no, Carlsen's not making a commitment just yet with his e-pawn. He's resolving the tension in the center, capturing here on d5. Why this particular move order? Well, in a way, he's saying, you know what, let me first see how you intend to recapture on d5. In the game, it's with a piece. If black instead recaptures with the pawn, okay, we know where we're going with this guy. We're just going to go one step. But since black decides to take with a piece in this game, well, Carlsen squeezes just a little bit more out of the e-pawn, goes 2 steps in this case. So now we work with a central majority here for Team White. We're going to see how he really puts this to use in this game. Castles. And let me throw this to you as a pop quiz. How would you continue here specifically with this light square bishop? Where are you going with this guy? What square do you think is best for the bishop? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, best square is d3. Why d3? Short answer, you secure e4. You anticipate pressure against d4. Bishop's going to be fianchettoed. That's one way you could look at it. Another is, if you try to, let's say, be a bit more active on c4, pointing at least some of the black pawns opposite the king. You really have to anticipate, if you're putting the bishop on c4, you have to anticipate that c5 is a break for black and that the c file is going to open up. So bishop's not going to feel so secure once that c file is opened. It's going to be a target. So most appropriate here, the d3 square. c5, sure enough, get castles in there and just completing development. And now, in a way, this a4 move, sort of minority attack, a 1 versus 2. We're just looking to peel open a file for the rook, create some target in black's camp as well. Black develops, in comes a5, and Firouzja just goes ahead and captures on a5 in this game. If you're not capturing, let's say you're going with a different move, rook on f to c8, for instance, white can consider playing a6 and, okay, maybe some long-term issue, should this pawn ever fall, this is going to be a really dangerous pawn to cope with. Firouzja just says, let me just eliminate any potential long-term issue with white maintaining an a pawn with such great depth on a6. It's b takes a. Rook takes a. Knight f6. Most efficient defender here will be the rook. Rook f to d8. And now queen to a1. Certainly functioning like a queen. a7 in the crosshairs. Queen functioning really nice on this long diagonal, supporting the center. Firouzja plays queen c7 here. So he has an eye on the f4 square from this post. The queen exerts some more pressure on e4. And black is saying, if you go ahead and take on a7, we're going to go into a queenless endgame. Carlsen doesn't bite here, does not take on a7. He plays h3, gets a flight square in for the king. How does this look if he captured on a7? Well, in the end, this rook goes to a8, and now this is the only safe square for the queen. And there you go. Queenless ending. White's up a pawn, but it's short-lived. One approach here for black is to pivot on a3, targeting this guy, and then play to c3. And by maneuvering the rook in this way, targeting the pawn from behind, you don't allow white to support it with the rook. So he's going to be getting this pawn right back. It's a completely equal endgame. In fact, if I had to pick one side or the other, I would prefer black here. This e-pawn would really much rather be back a step in this simplified position. Right now, it's still just a target. In any case, Carlsen here does not take on a7, h3 it is. Follow up now a6, rook c5, queen f4, and rook e5. So if black isn't careful, this queen could certainly find herself in hot water. This last move has cut her off from any retreat squares along this diagonal. So in the game, the rook post here on e5 is immediately challenged. The knight goes to d7. If black plays instead a5, here's how white can continue. Rook e3, and right around the corner, g3, and the queen would be trapped. Okay. Makes sense to challenge this rook. Knight d7 it is in this game. Rook a5, knight returns to f6. Are we going to have a threefold repetition? Rook on these two, knight on these two. Nope. Carlsen goes for a thematic pawn sacrifice in the center. And this is these next couple of moves here by white. Very thematic when you have this 2-on-1 situation. So it's first d5, e takes d, and no recapture here on d5. White in this game plays e5. If white simply takes on d5, plenty of ways black can continue. All of these recaptures are fine. White's plan here is to sneak right by with e5. Now let's just pause for a moment and try to digest what just happened there with those last few pawn moves. First of all, with this move d5 and then the capture, what might we say at this very moment? Black has been stripped of one kingside pawn. This guy is a hair weaker. And after e5, many ways to look at this. Black can now forget about using the d5 square for any of the pieces. With e5, white now has a kingside majority. This knight has to find a new home, and the e-pawn is mobile. It can look to play e6 someday, further weakening black's king position. Influencing f7 would mean g6 becomes a whole. And this guy in d3 is already eyeing up that square. Anything more to add? Well, black here has to be a bit careful as well. There's only one good move, and he does play it. It's knight to e4. If the knight goes somewhere else, let's say d7, looking maybe for some knight maneuver, hang on. White would be winning here. Rook a4. That queen's out of squares. Okay. So, in this game, knight e4, very sensible. At least this bishop still indirectly plays a role, right? Supporting, it's blocked by a pawn, but it's indirectly supporting a knight on e4. And now that the knight is on e4, this queen from the corner has a fantastic square right in the center. And with this post, she's also pinning the knight to the queen. Okay, so how to continue here for black? Goes rook d to c8. Carlsen maneuvers his rook, gets on the b file. Bishop finds a new home on c6. And now we continue with pawn sacrifice number 2, e6 on board. So this is what I feel makes this game special. This double pawn sacrifice. The initial one that we saw before e6 is played, very thematic, but to, in fact, go with both pawn sacrifices, really nice play here. What's happening with e6 in this case? You could view it as a clearance sacrifice. The knight now has access to e5. And Influencing that f-pawn means g6 is now a hole. The bishop has an eye on that square right away. And with this follow-up, knight e5, so too does the knight. With this last move, there's now a threat. The f-pawn is free to advance now, targeting the pinned knight. White's ready to win some material with f3. Black's out of that pin now. f3 still. The knight goes to g5 in this position. If black tries to stay more central, let's say knight d6, white's going to win material after rook b6. A problem here on the 6th rank. What do you do here? How do you save the piece? You can't. If you try to move the knight here targeting the queen, white can take like this. Queen's there to defend, but yeah, the knight can take, which also removes the defender of d5. And now after rook takes knight, queen takes d5 check. White's winning a major piece in this case. Okay, no knight d6. Knight g5 in this game. Rook b6. Bishop e8. The bishop is on its back foot, but does a very good job of taming this strong knight. Black has good coordination here. Rooks are perfect. A simple plan ahead now for black. Just advance this passed pawn. White has to act fast here, has to try and stir up trouble on the king side. These central pawn advances by white have carved out excellent squares for the pieces. He has to make use of this somehow. White cannot afford a queen exchange here. So his first order of business, let's get out of the way here so that this knight is now free to move. He has his eye on g4. It's a4, knight g4, and the queen goes home in this position. The e6 pawn is now a clear target. All the majors are on this point. If the queen goes to e7 instead, black would just be asking for h4, and after the knight moves, rook takes e6, and then the queen is hit. She's got to move again. Okay, she simply goes home here. And the follow-up is rook captures e6. If white tries h4 in this position, hang on, black would have d4 here, hitting the queen, and also cutting the white queen off from defending the rook. So in this game, it is the direct rook captures e6, knight takes rook, queen takes knight. Pop quiz. You have 3 moves here. Which one are you choosing? Only one keeps this as a draw. Which one are you picking? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, in the game, Firouzja blocks with the bishop. That's a losing move. Now, regardless of these 3 moves, the best reply in all cases is knight captures h6. So this is what's considered best, king h8. This is a drawing line. Now, in this position, if Carlsen ended up capturing here on h6, I believe he would have had to calculate something like close to 10 moves deep. Why am I saying this exactly? Well, we'll see soon enough. First of all, what's happening here if black captures the knight? The best move in this position and only move for black would be bishop h5. If the knight is captured in this situation, it would lead to checkmate. Bishop sneaks in, king f7, it's a checkmate in 2. And if the king goes to the corner, we're going to have a check, check, checkmate. And if black pulls off the very best move in this situation, in other words, declining this capture, bishop h5, how do we continue at this point? Notice what bishop h5 is doing. If you're not taking the knight, you have to parry queen g8 for mate. Queen has that covered. And the bishop has a watchful eye over f7. There's a fork right around the corner. only move situation for white. Knight g4. Multiple moves here for black that hold a draw, but this is the line that would really have to have been calculated by Carlsen. Queen e8. Trying to get the queens off. You cannot afford a queen exchange. Black would have to give up more material. This is the only move that draws. Queen f5. What's the material count? Carlsen would be down here, the exchange and a rook, but it's still a draw here with these pieces still around the black king, who has very little defense. Serious threat here on h7. This does go a little bit further. In the case of g6, we could have some perpetual. If the king goes to these two, the queen goes to these two. And if black goes for more, another only move. And then we have some perpetual potentially on these three squares. Queen going wherever the king goes. And if the king continues to walk, knight e5 here. And that would be black, who has to be a bit careful. Okay, very lengthy line to be sure. In this game, we do not have king h8. It's bishop f7. Knight takes h6. Pawn takes knight. It's fine that the queen takes on h6 and is not delivering check. White doesn't have to be forceful. That's how strong this position is. These three pieces are good enough to do the job. Black continues here with queen c7. If some other move is played, let's say rook c7, this rook can enter the scene. It's going to be a big problem. White's attacking with all three, and there's no pawn defense. So one of the points here, or really the main point with queen c7, you don't allow the rook to enter the action. But we don't need the rook. Queen check, only move. Queen check, only move. And one more check, and black resigns. If black continued here, what are the options? Queen block, king move. If you move with the king, it's going to be a checkmate in 3. Bishop check, queen check, and I don't know. Which one are you picking here? You want to go with the pawn or the bishop? I'm going with the pawn. And that's mate. And the other path, a queen block if the game continued, is going to be a mate in 2. With queen d6 check, only 2 moves, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. In both cases, the white queen drops on e7 for mate. But in this one, after queen h6, black simply resigns. So, what'd you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.